Hello, this is David Eckman and Shiwei Wu.
这是艾克曼博士和吴希伟。
We're looking at the workbook, Becoming What God Intended.
我们在看《成为合神心意》这本教材。
And we're looking at Chapter 6, which deals with acceptance and trust.
我们在看第6章信任和接纳。
And we're on reading 4.
我们正在看第4讲。
3 forms of false faith.
3种错误形式的信。
And the form of false faith we are looking at is faith without results.
我们要来看没有果效的信心，
Or faith without works.
或者信心没有行为。
And we're looking at the book of James, chapter 2.
我们来看雅各书第2章。
And let me give 2 quick illustrations so that you can see his argument.
让我来很快的解释一下。
If I had a coin in my hand,
如果我手上有一个铜币，
it would have a top and a bottom.
我们这个铜币有正面和反面。
And wherever the coin would go, the top and the bottom would go.
不管什么时候你扔这个铜币的时候，这个正面和反面是一起走的。
They belong together.
它们因为是属于一个铜币。
It is the same with faith and works.
信心和行为也是一样。
You can't have one without the other.
你不能够只有一样，没有另外一样。
Faith is the deep belief of the heart.
信心是一个内心最深处的一个信念。
And when there is deep belief in the heart, it affects the life.
如果是它在你内心深处，它一定影响你的生活。
And what James is telling us is this: faith plus salvation equals works.
雅各告诉我们，信心加上救恩是行为。
It is not faith plus works equals salvation.
不是说救恩等于信心加行为。
We trust in the gospel.
我们相信福音，
We become Christians.
我们成为基督徒，
And that results in effects in our life.
这个结果影响到我们的生活。
So now let's look at James chapter 2 verse 14.
那我们来看雅各书第2章第14节。
What shall we say, brothers,
我的弟兄们，
if you say you have faith and they don't have works? Is that faith able to save him?
如果人说他有信心却没有行为，有什么益处呢？这信心能救他吗？
And the natural answer to that is no, it can't save him.
我们自然回答说这是不可能的。
Now, what we must understand is that the Bible describes 3 false kinds of faith and only one real one.
我们必须知道，圣经里描述了3种错误形式的信，只有一种正确的信。
And what James is describing here is an intellectualized faith,
而雅各在这里描述了一个只有头脑里面的资料的那种信，
where it's believing only in information.
那里只有了解这个信息，
It's not a trust that is deep, deep in the heart.
不是一个内心深处的信靠。
Then he goes on to say in verse 15 and 16,
第15节和第16节说，
if a brother or sister is without clothing and lacking what it is necessary to eat,
如果有弟兄姐妹缺衣少食，
and if anyone should say to them, you depart in peace, be warmed and be filled,
而你们中间有人却说平安的去吧，愿你们穿得暖，吃得饱，
and he doesn't give to them what is necessary for the body,
却不给他身体所需用的，
what is the profit of that?
这有什么用处呢？
Thus also faith, if it doesn't have results or works,
信心也是一样，如果它没有果效或者没有行为，
is a corpse by itself.
这信心就是一个死尸。
A corpse doesn't have any life in it.
一个死尸没有生命在它里边，
So you will not see any results or works.
所以你不会看到果效或者是行为。
And the faith that doesn't affect the life is just a corpse.
而一个信心如果不能够影响你的生活，那么就像个死尸。
Because real faith is so powerful, it's like being given life.
因为真正的信心是非常有能力的，它给你生命。
It's like a 4-year-old little boy.
就好像一个4岁的小孩，
If you ask him to play dead,
如果你让他假装死，
he can only do that for about 4 seconds
他可以做4秒钟，
because he's filled with life.
因为他是充满生命的人。
And then James goes on to speak more of this.
而雅各继续的解释，
But a certain one will say, you have faith and I have works.
有人会说你有信心，我有行为，
Show me your faith apart from the works,
请把你没有果效的信心给我看，
and I will show you out of my works the faith.
我就借着我的行为，我的果效，把我的信心给你看。
Again in verse 19, he gives another illustration of what he's saying.
而第19节，雅各又举了一个例子，
You believe that the God is one.
你相信神只有一位，
You do very well.
你信得不错。
But the demons are also continually believing and they're continually trembling.
就连魔鬼也相信，不过他却是战惊惧怕的发抖，
Because even the demons are shaking.
因为连魔鬼都在战惊，
They're being affected by what they believe.
他们为了自己所相信的东西而发抖。
And so James is again saying is that real faith affects the life
雅各说，真正的信心是影响你的生命的，
and it produces works.
它产生的是果效。
And then in verse 20 he says, You desire to know, O empty man,
空洞的人呐、你应该知道，
that the faith apart from works is useless.
你知道没有果效的信心是没有用的吗？
That kind of faith just doesn't produce any activity.
那样的信心，什么行为也没有产生出来。
And then he refers to Abraham,
然后他说到亚伯拉罕，
and he takes the example of Abraham's sacrifice of his son.
他举一个例子，亚伯拉罕将他的儿子献上。
And so Abraham's faith came to a completion by the sacrifice of Isaac.
亚伯拉罕的信心使得他能够把儿子献上。
In verse 24, he says, You see how a man is justified out of works and not out of faith only.
你知道，一个人不光是靠着信心称义，他也靠着行为。
That phrase you see means, don't you understand? Have you not figured it out?
你明白不明白？
Then he takes the example of Rahab the prostitute.
然后他又出另外一个例子，是一个妓女。
Rahab the prostitute was justified by faith because she took in the spies and protected them.
他举出妓女拉合，因为他信，所以他把以色列的那个探子接到家里。
James took the greatest man, Abraham,
雅各举出最伟大的信心之父，
and this very unimportant woman who was a Gentile,
还有这个非常不重要的这个外邦人的女人拉合，
and who was a prostitute.
她是一个妓女。
Both of them were justified by faith and it affected their lives.
他们都是因为信心影响了他们的生活。
Then he returns to his illustration of the corpse in verse 26, the last verse.
然后他回到没有行为的信心是一具死尸的问题。
For just as the body apart from the spirit is a corpse,
人没有圣灵，就是好像一个死尸。
thus also faith without works is a corpse.
没有行为的信心也是一个死尸。
The New Testament assumes that an act of real faith,
一个真正的信心是非常有能力的。
but sinful people believe that just understanding information is faith.
但是有罪的人以为说明白了真理就是一个信心，
And that's not faith at all.
那不是信心，
Instead, faith changes the heart.
因为信心是改变你的心思意念。
We understand what James is saying by the pictures he uses.
我们明白雅各的图像，
His picture is the body with the spirit in it.
他用的是一个身体里面是有灵魂的，
The living body has a living spirit in it.
活的身体有活的灵在里边，
And real faith has living works that come out of it.
而真正的信心有实际的行动。
And so this is reading 4,
这是第4讲，
chapter 6.
第6章。